about avoda is to be able to find that nekuda of Yosef HaTzadik within oneself. The nekuda of Yosef HaTzadik within oneself means what we're going to be learning a lot about. That nekuda means a person coming to a place where he is able to understand, this is who I am, thank you, and this is the tachlis of my life. Whether the tachlis of my life is to be able to sit and learn all day for the rest of my life, or the tachlis is to be a teacher, or the tachlis is to have a job. What kind of job? What does a person do? What's the inyan of Yosef HaTzadik at work? What does that mean? All of these things have to do with finding that point within oneself that's Yoshe b'Seisu Elyon, that nekuda of Yosef HaTzadik within oneself. And this is something which the Sforim HaKadoshim talk a great deal about. The Rabbi in Igeres HaKodesh Perek Zayin, and Rabbi Chaim Vital and the Ariya Kodesh, and all the Sforim talk about this inyan. But the place in the Sforim where it's spoken about most openly is in the Ishbitz Sforim. So we're going to be learning some pieces from the Beis Yaakov, a little bit from the Meshilach, a little bit from Reb Tzadok, a little bit from Reb Geshen Henoch, and from the Tzfas Yosef, the Tzadikim of Radzin, of Ishbitz Radzin. We're going to begin with this piece from the Beis Yaakov. I want to go in the order from the Ovis, which is the Nin of Yaakov in Yosef HaTzadik. Then we're going to be talking about Reb Tzadok Mitzvah next week on what happened at Har Sinai. What's the meaning of Anochi Hashem Elokecha in the context of our avodah that we're doing now, which is all about Tikkun Habris, Kedusha of Yosef HaTzadik. So next Sunday is Erev Yantiv. Oh, next Sunday is Erev Yantiv. Okay, that's not Erev Yantiv like the next Monday. Next what? Monday night. Oh, so Erev. So Sunday's. Yeah. On Monday's Erev Yantiv. Yeah. Okay, what's that?
Jeff is wrong as usual.
Most of you agreed with me, though.
We're going to meet him like a tashlich on the wrong day. It's a day earlier at tashlich. Okay. Isha sheki b'chosa berach ha'isah. So Yaakov Avinu is going to leave the world, and before he leaves the world, he looks at his children, and he wants to give a bracha to each of the children, but it's Ish asher ki b'chosa berach osa. That Yaakov Avinu had the ability to give each child the exact bracha that he needed. That's something. Ish asher ki b'chosa berach osa. Each one the bracha that he needed, who he was. As Yaakov Avinu understood the essence of each of his children, and the bracha was given to each one to help that son bring out the koiches that were within him, to be able to identify his own unique koiches, who he is, and how to use those koiches that he has, the koiches, the kishronis, his own midas, how to use those in order to be an Eved Hashem. So the Beis Yaakov explains, Hishchil b'loshen yachid. We see that the way that it's worded in the Torah is that it begins b'loshen yachid, Ish asher ki b'chasa. Each man according to his bracha. Ish asher ki b'chasa. L'ram is b'zeh, shekefi hachayim v'hamida shehiniach Hashem esbarach b'kol echad ve'echad b'mkor shorish b'mida zu ba'atzma Birech es kol echad ve'echad sheyatzliach ma'od b'nekudas ha'chaim shlo u'b'midaso. Let's read this very carefully. Kfi ha'chaim v'hamida. Each person has his own chaim, his own life, and the shorish of who he is. V'hamida sheiniach Hashem esbarach b'kol echad ve'echad. HaKadosh Baruch Hu has created each and every one of us differently, and each person has chaim v'hamida of who he is. B'kol echad ve'echad b'makor shorish b'mida zu. B'makor, the root of the shorish b'mida zu. Ba'atzma, with that, birech es kol echad ve'echad. Yaakov Avinu gave a bracha to each one of his sons. And as Yaakov Avinu understood, he knew with his Ruach HaKodesh the Shorish HaChaim and the Midah, what was unique about each of his children. And he gave each one of them a bracha, Sheyatzliach Ma'od, B'nekudas HaChaim Shelo, Uva Midasa. that each one of his children, he gave the bracha to help him to be Masliach, b'nekudas hachayim shelo, in that nekuda of his own life, b'midaso, and his midas, who he is. V'heirim v'noses on nekuda hazois ma'od. And through this, Yaakov Avinu tried to lift up, to elevate, to bring out that nekuda. And Yaakov was very, very careful not to be machnes echad begvul chaveiro, not to mix the children up one into the gvul of the other, not to cross into the borders of the other son, but each son was ish kiberchaso, each one kiberchaso, not to mix up. Nosas nekuda zos ma'od, aber lo shahaya machnes echad begvul chaveiro, ela shekol echad yifre v'yirbe begvul midasa. The bracha was that each one should yifre v'yirbe, should become great. But that greatness is going to be begvul midasa, within the borders of his own midas, of who he is. Ki be'emes ein shum neiche l'shum nefesh b'chelkol shechaveiro. This sentence would be sent around to all the schools, all of our homes. Ki be'emes ein shum neicha. The truth is that a person does not have any. Neicha means two things. It means menucha. He doesn't find peace. He doesn't find neicha, menucha, nor does he find nachas ruach. Ein shum neicha l'shum nefesh b'chelkol shechaveiro. There is no person that can find menucha by trying to imitate the other, by trying to be in the gvul, to live the other person's life. V'ikar haneicha yesh l'kol nefesh rak b'chelko. And the ikar haneicha, that word is found in the Ishmael Sisram, it's used all the time. Neicha. V'ikar haneicha yesh l'kol nefesh rak b'chelko hanitin lo b'sharasho. Which is what we're going to see in Rabbi HaTzadik, why Hashem's Baruch said by Har Sinai, Anochi Hashem Elokecha. There are other psukim that are written Elokechem. But Elokecha means, and Chazal tell us, that Hashem spoke somehow to each individual person. Anochi Hashem Elokecha. And that your job is to connect to me through the shorish of your own life and who you are and how I created you as somebody who is distinct from the other person, including your brothers and sisters and so on. A person can only find menucha and nachas only bechelka anitnal b'sharsha, that chelik that was given to him, that Hashem infused within him, b'sharsha. Or b'zehu mishtoikek tamid sheyifer v'yirba ad ma'oi. And in that nekudas achayim of his chelik, he in the deepest part of himself, he is longing to expand and to become great and to succeed in that chelik of who he is. B'zeh Amar Yaakov Avinu alav shalom Yosef. So Yosef is there with Ephraim and Menashe, and of course Yosef lines them up in such a way that the older one Menashe should get the right side and Ephraim on the left side, and he prepared them before his father for the brachas. But Yaakov Avinu, of course, switched his hands over one to the other. And he said, Yadati b'ni yadati. I know, my son, I know. Yadati b'ni yadati. Hainu. She'omelo ani yodea yosem mimcha. I know more than you. She'ani mistakel b'nekudas hashayrish shekol echad. Because I am looking into the nekudas hashayrish of each one of your children. V'sham ani roeh, and when I do that, I'm able to see she'ef shaloharim es Menashe kefi daitecha. You would like me to bring Menashe through my bracha, to bring Menashe to a certain place that's not his place. You want me to bring him to a certain place of godless, but she'ef shaloharim es Menashe kefi daitecha. Yosef gavo mimasha ani merimo. I cannot lift him to a place that's higher than the one that I'm lifting him, because the place that's higher is not his place. It might make you proud as a father, but it's not his place as a grandfather, not father, but as a zaydi. It might make you very proud as a zaydi, and to see his einiklach in that place, but that's not him. So I'm not doing that. He says, "B'sham ani roshi ev shaloharim es menashe kefi daitacha Yosef gavo mimasha ani merimo sheyetzim menu gidon she is gadol ayodo kol kach kavod shemayim avlo Yosef." He says that I see the place to which I can lift him, and I see that ev shaloharim es menashe kefi daitacha Yosef gavo mimasha ani merimo sheyetzim menu gidon. And I'm bringing him to the place that from him will come forth that koach of the shofet of Gidon. V'shiyis gadol al yodo kol kach kavod shemayim. And Menashe and his children, and he singled out the descendant Gidon, will bring tremendous kavod shemayim. There'll be great kavod shemayim that will come out from your son, from Menashe, and from his descendants. Avlo Yosef. But that doesn't mean that Gidon is supposed to be a Rosh Karlo, necessarily. Gidon will, and your other Einiklach, I'm trying to bring out the Nekudas Echaim and who they are. And they, in that Nekudas Echaim, are going to bring Kavod Shemayim. Avlo Yosef. However, I'm looking at Yaakov is telling Yosef. I'm looking at the Nekudas Echaim. That Nekudas Echaim she'niach Hashem is baruch ba'ashar shel Ephraim. That Hashem has placed into the shorish of Ephraim. Efshela hagbia oiso ulharimus yispashtu b'yosef. And I see that I'm able to take that Nekudas Echaim and to go with it to a higher place. Yaakov saw that I'm able to take that Nekudas Echaim and bring it to a higher place. And that higher place is going to lead to the Messias in this world of Yehoshua. Sheyetzim menu Yehoshua. That from Ephraim there will come forth Yehoshua, Moshe Rabbeinu's greatest Talmud, the Kibbutz of Eretz Yisrael, and so on. V'im tirtza she'arim es Menashe Yosef. And if you want me to, because Menashe is the oldest, and tradition tells us that I'm supposed to give Menashe the highest point. That I'm supposed to bring out in Menashe. But he says, but Yaakov says to Yosef, V'im tirtza she'arim es Menashe Yosef. You want me to lift Menashe to a higher place. But if I do that, but if I do that, then he's going to be trespassing into the gvul. He's going to be trying to break through that would cause him to break through the borders of Ephraim. Again, it might turn out to be something very impressive and give the parents a lot of nachas, but he's not going to have any neicha. But Menashe and wherever that comes out in the Englach, it's not going to bring to Menuchas HaNefesh, to Neicha. Neicha means to feel that this is where I'm supposed to be. So you're going to be able to, maybe there'll be great people, but they're not going to be people that are filled with Simchas Echaim and with Menuchas HaNefesh. They're not going to be happy people. And they're not going to be Ovdei Hashem to the best of their ability, because they're going to be living somebody else's life, not their own. Look what he says. Ki shum nefesh eino merutza ela michelko. It's impossible for any person to be satisfied with anything other than his own chelik. Shum nefesh ena merutza ela michelko. Ki'inin hatfil, like we say in davening. We just said a few minutes ago in davening. V'yosem b'libeinu ahavaso v'yiraso. We daven that HaKadosh Baruch Hu should put in our hearts, that He should help us to feel ahavaso v'yiraso, His love and His fear. Umadu le'nemar v'yosem libeno ahava v'yira. Why doesn't it just say v'yosem libeno ahava and yira, love and fear? Why does it say ahavaso v'yiraso? Ubir b'zeh ha'ari HaKodesh. So Arizal said on this, Shatfilahi sheyosem Hashemesh baruch leiv kol prat nefesh ahavaso v'yiraso hashayach lo lechelko. That this tefillah means that we're asking Hashem to help me to help me love you according to the capacity that I have to love you, in my way of loving you. Ahavaso v'yiraso, like it says, ish kibir chaso, ahavaso and yiraso, kibir chaso. Hashayach lo lechelko, he says. Shatfili sheyosem Hashem baruch leiv kol prat nefesh ahavaso v'yiraso hashayach lo lechelko me'ashorish. That shayach to this person, shayach lo lechelko me'ashorish. Ki ahava v'yira kazu. Because if it's a way of loving and fearing Hashem, she'ein lo ba shaychus me'ashorish, that person doesn't have really a shaychus to that way of ahava and yira me'ashorish, from the root of who he is. It's not from the Kodesh of who he is. Ve'eno lechelko, and it's not his chelik. Rakshu chelik zulaso, it's somebody else's chelik, but it's not his chelik. Av sheyesh b'zeh gam ken yakus, even though it's a very chashuv thing. Havas Hashem, whatever it's like, is great, and Yiras Hashem is a chashuv thing. So even though he says Av sheyesh b'zeh gam ken yakus, even though there's something yakar, there's something valuable about any way of serving Hashem. All the ways, all the kosher ways of serving Hashem. He says, Yesh b'zeh gam ken yakros. So when the Rebbe's talking to 25 guys, and now you have places that are 32 guys, whatever, when the Rebbe's talking to that chevra, every single person that's sitting in front of him has ahavaso v'yiraso. And the Rebbe has ahavaso v'yiraso. And the way that the Rebbe is going to be giving over ahava and yira, you're fortunate if you have a Rebbe that talks about that, and it's not so common. So if the Rebbe is going to be trying to give over ahavas Hashem and yiras Hashem, it's going to be most likely ahavaso v'yiraso, v'yesh b'zeh yakus gamken. So that's also a good thing, and he's going to be saying over Rambams and Rambans and Kuzuris, hopefully, and some other things. It'll be good. Ahavas Hashem, yiras Hashem, but sof kol sof, he's giving over his own nekudas achayim. And he's trying to give over to the best of his ability, and the notainus, to the best of his ability, ahavaso v'yiraso. But there are 20, 30 boys who are sitting in front of him, and each one has nekudas achayim, b'sharash achayim shelo. Nekudas achayim, b'sharash achayim shelo. Now, obviously, we all know that l'chatchila, chinuch was supposed to take place between a father and a son, because there's a much deeper connection than the Sharash HaChaim, and the Sharash HaChaim of the father and the son. And that was chinuch ha'chatchila. But for many, many reasons, that couldn't continue in such a way. And by this time already, the whole Indian of institutions has gotten completely out of control. Because really, the Sharash is still a father and a son. That has never, ever changed. For practical reasons, it's necessary to have institutions. But it's a b'dei of it. Every school, every yeshiva, makes no difference what they say at the dinner. Every yeshiva is a b'dei of it. Every school is a b'dei of it. A big b'dei of it. L'chatchila is you and your kid. That's l'chatchila. Because there's a sharash chaim that they share in common. The Rebbe is the best Rebbe, and we respect and love all of them. They're doing the best they can. But sof kol sof, that's ahavaso v'yiraso. And the boy that's sitting in front of him has Hasharash HaChaim Shelo. And if the boy hears a Torah, it could be that he heard 5,000 shmuzim from this teacher, and not one of them reached the Nekudas HaChaim Shelo, but the one that does changes his life forever. If it happens that the Rebbe would say that, and there was a certain Torah, he said something that was touching, the edge of the Kodesh Chaim of that kid, that could change his life forever. The problem, of course, the sadness is when a kid can go through years and years and years and he doesn't hear anything that's touching the Kodesh Chaim Shalom. Even though it's all Torah and it's all holy and it's all good. And he tries to do whatever he can to learn everything he can to keep everything. But in the Kodesh Chaim is a mashu acher legamri. It's something different. So the Rabbi says, the Beis Yaakov, Av sheyesh b'zeh gam ken Yaakos. And now the other kid's going out of his kelim from this Torah. This is gewaldig. But it's not reaching him. It's reaching the other one. It's not reaching him. So what often happens, it's natural that, so this one that it's not reaching feels like an outsider. And he wants to, his friend is, so he tries to enter into the gvul of his friend. And that could be helpful in many ways in his Yiddishkeit, but it's never ever going to bring him to a place of neicha. And since we're living in the generation of Mashiach ben Yosef, and we're Atat before Mashiach ben David, and the Inyan of Mashiach ben David is like it says by Shlomo Melech, an Aish menucha, and an Aish shalom, is to come to that place. Everybody now in our generation wants to have menucha. It never was in earlier years that you had to necessarily enjoy what you were doing for a living, right? You just went to work. You weren't looking for any menucha in what you do. Again, menucha doesn't, I'm not using it as a way of rest. You understand? Menucha means, like it says by Rus, menucha means that you're in the place that you belong. When Naomi told Rus and Orpah to go back to that place, to the homes, Isha Beis Isha, where you're going to find peace. What? Contentment, good. That's a better word. Because you're only going to find contentment in menucha. That neicha, that contentment is when you're living, I guess the content of your life is spent in that place, which is the Shorosh HaChaim, which is your Shorosh HaChaim. Of course, that has a lot to do with marriage and shidduchim and so on. But the Shorosh HaChaim is where you're going to find menucha. And in our generation, unlike earlier generations, from an early age, kids are insisting on feeling this neicha. But it wasn't like that. Now, this is a symbol of something very, very, very remarkable and very great. At the same time, it's causing unbelievable tzaras. You can understand. The kid doesn't feel that menucha, that neicha, that contentment with where he is. And in the old days, it was just, you keep quiet and you just do what you have to. And who said you have to feel contentment? And who says you have to feel happy? So you don't. And every father said to his kid, "You think I was ever happy? I was never happy." And the kid says, this world is not about contentment. It's not about neicha. It's not about menucha. It's not about happiness. Other Rabbi, the contentment could be a sign that you're doing the wrong thing. And in our generation, there's something very, very remarkable that's happening. Is that a lot of the chevra are just not settling. Now, with that comes, of course, immaturity and confusion. They think that they're going to be, that the contentment's going to come, sitting in Washington Square, playing a guitar or something. I don't know if people still do that. That was, I haven't been in Washington Square in a long time. But, so there's a lot of confusion because of the immaturity. But the unsettledness is coming from a Mashiach's in. The unsettledness. There was never a generation as unsettled as ours. That feeling of being unsettled. Because the Inyan of Mashiach is Ish Tachas Teinos, Ish Tachas Gafna, each one will be in his place. And therefore, we're going to see that in the days of Mashiach it's no longer going to be necessary to receive one from the other, to teach another person. It's not going to be any more, because everything, whenever there's teaching, it means there's somebody that's filling you with something that is very likely not you. And that's the Torah of Rav Kook that we learned many times over the years, where Yecheskel says, Vani Bagola, Bani B'sach HaGola, I am in Golas. Ha'ani, ha'atzmi, ha'pnimi. I am in Golas. The I of who I am is in Golas. And there Rav Kook says that teachers and parents try to fatten, he used the word to fatten, they fatten their children with ideas and concepts that are not their, that are not theirs, that are not the children's. And there's a terrible feeling of discontentment, unhappiness, and misery that is felt by a person who's being bombarded by Torah. That's not his Torah. It's Torah's, all Torah is Am Yisrael's Torah. Therefore, there's a Yaakov Bezeh also. There's something very, very valuable, and you should always enjoy every piece of Torah, any Torah that you learn, a pasuk, Chumash Rashi, what is Gevaldik, everything. But the Shorish HaChaim, the Nekudas HaChaim, is something else. And there's a terrible feeling of unrest, discontent, uneasiness, and especially when it's an image, if there's a personality, a certain personality. I don't want to say adaptive mature, but this type of, it could be a fire type of a personality. It could come out in anger and rage, which many of the teenagers have nowadays. And the parents just don't know, where is this from? What's going on? I thought we were nice people. Where is this anger coming from? Where's the anger? The anger is, I'm not in my place. I have no neicha with the stuff that I'm hearing. I have no neicha with the things that you're telling me to do. I don't feel a neicha. But that doesn't mean he's not supposed to put on tefillin. Every Jew, every male bar mitzvah is supposed to wear tefillin. And when he's in touch with the Nekudas HaChaim, then the tefillin will be unbelievably enjoyable to him. But if he hasn't, and if he's deprived of that Nekudas HaChaim, if he's not given that Nekudas, if it's not revealed to him that Nekudas HaChaim, so then it's like the wrong hand of Yaakov Avinu's on his head, and both of Yaakov Avinu's hands were holy. And Yaakov Avinu gave the Kodesh HaBracha, but he gave each kid b'chosai. And Yaakov said to Yosef, I'm not crossing them, I'm not going into the gvul of the other one, I won't do that. You want the older one, because that's how things work in the world. So you want the older one, the tradition is the older one like this, and the younger one like this. No, the younger one, Yeshua is coming from the younger one. And you're going to push me, and if you push me, it's going to mess up this one's life. Like the parents that want the kid to go davka to that certain yeshiva, a davka to that certain teacher, even though it's not for the kid. This goes on all the time. It goes on with the yeshiva, it goes on with camp, all kinds of things. Where the parent has an inyan, the parents are trying to do the best of their ability to mivara, and they believe that this is the best place for the kid. Oftentimes, it's very, very obvious to everybody else is looking at this that this is not the best place for the kid. Sometimes it's harder to figure out. Sometimes it's almost impossible to figure out. And everybody just tries the best. They try the best that you can do. But you'll have people that are wondering, why is it that these parents, the kids, each one is so different? And in the Welt, they look at that as a sign of you have failed. I personally see that as a sign of unbelievable success. And I'm proud of each one of my children, that each one is different from the other. And in the Welt, if your kids come out looking the same, dressing the same, talking the same, everything the same, in the Welt, you are the guest of honor. In the Welt. Those could be the most broken, dysfunctional people on earth, and sometimes it comes out 50, 60, 70 years later. Or could there be such a nice that each one of them is Ishki B'chasai? Could be such a thing. Not in the Pneumians. Okay, kids will dress up to make their parents happy or something. They'll put on the uniform. Nowadays, they're fighting against that too. Many of the kids are fighting against the uniform. Even the uniform, which is the Chitonius thing, it's an Irish guy, the clothing. But they fight against that too. Because it's a symbol, for many of the kids, it's a symbol of my being forced into a life that's not mine. You want me to be like you. You want the pictures to look nice at the chasana, at the bar mitzvahs. Everybody looks a certain way, and they got the hat, like the right tilt, You want it to look a certain way. That was a law on you. And never before have kids been as angry about these things. And the father's saying, okay, what's the big deal? What's the big deal? It is a big deal. In that kid's, again, the mind is not developed, and the heart is not fully developed. And for that kid, he feels, you're killing me. You are killing me. You are destroying my life. So, whoa, just talking about putting this on, for the simcha, you are killing me. Now, of course, there's something immature about that. It makes everybody happy, so put the thing on or whatever. So, for a picture, no. But our generation before Mashiach comes is too raw and too honest. It's an interesting thing. And then they're not into the cosmetics, into the makeup, into the whole thing. It doesn't work for them like it worked for the older generations. For everybody, you did what you were supposed to do. So the Rabbi says that that's the meaning of Ahavosa v'Yerosa. Ben Luchelko, he says, because he says, Ki Ahava v'Yer kazu she'ein lo ba shaychus me'ashorish ve'en Luchelko rak shu chelik zulaso av she'esh b'zagam kinyakus achein nemar zel lamad lo nigal arik. In the same sentence in Uval Tzion, Ahavosa v'Yerosa, it says what? Lamad lo nigal arik. And it's talking about Yiddishkeit. What do you mean lamad lo nigal arik? Tell me like this. This guy loves learning Shas Be'iyun. He loves it. Notice he could sit on a blot for 3 weeks, a month, 2 months, and he loves it. But the Rebbe says that's not a way to learn. And he brings him all the letters from Tzaddikim and Gedolim that you have to move. And you try to pull him into a different place. Even though it's Limud Torah, but the person can still feel, if they're covering, let's say, 250 blot, that's man, he might feel that it was a Yegiya, that was Larik. It was a Lani. I didn't learn. What do you mean you didn't learn? You learned 200 blot this month. You were dragging around on 2 blot last year. Now, I'm not saying which is the right. I'm talking about there's Sinai and there's Oikar. They're different Darchei Limud. There are different ways of learning. And that's each person according to the Nekudas Chaim Shalom. But the one who says that this is wrong, you can't do this is broken, and drags the person into his gevul, then even though the person's Isaac and Dvarim Shav Gedush, he could feel that my life is a life that's rik, empty. V'lo niga larik. Lo niga, that we shouldn't work and toil larik. Larik means rake, for nothing. Because what you're telling me is somebody else's chelik. Yeah, it's all good stuff. I have a v'yira, but it's not my chelik. That's not my way of loving Hashem. That's not my way of Yos Hashem. Eino pa'elas klal b'ha'adam she'eino shayach lo. And that way, which is not your way, which is not your Nekudas Chaim, it doesn't work, he says. Eino pa'elas klal b'ha'adam she'eino shayach lo. It's not pa'elas. It doesn't work if it's not his. V'chol yigiyaso ba hu larik. It's terrible. V'chol yigiyaso ba is larik. And he's trying and trying and trying and doing the best he can, and it comes out larik. Well, Zeh Isa B'Zar Kodesh, and he brings that lashon of the Zohar in Pinchas, in Parshas Pinchas. The Banash, the Bani Binyan, Shapirin, the Zohar says that a person, this can be, it talks about a person who builds Binyan Shapir, he builds beautiful buildings. Yoin Lemechze. Yoin Lemechze means they're beautiful buildings that are nice to look at. He builds a beautiful building, a beautiful house, and everybody walks by the house and they admire it. It's beautiful. Mistakel bi Yisayda, V'cham l'shaki akima mikol sitrin. Then he looks at the Yisod. He looks at the foundation of this beautiful building. And what is it? It's Shakia. He looks at V'chamil Shakia Akima Mikol Sitrin. It's crooked. Akim Akum. It's crooked. the foundation of the house, it's a beautiful house. And everybody admires it and they're taking pictures. But the foundation, he says, is crooked mikol sitra from all sides. He says, the building is not going to be in a place of shleimus until he knocks down this beautiful structure that everybody admires, until he knocks it down. And he's able to build it. He says until he knocks this down and he builds his building, where that building is good and beautiful from the Yesod. Mishirta di Yesoida. He says, because when it's bish va'akim will begin kach leikri uv de sholem. Because when the Yesod is not good and it's crooked, it's not an uv de sholem. It's not a complete thing. Leikri binyan sholem. Begin kach Tzadik Shanagami talks about the Indian Tzadik Shanagami. He talks there about Gilgulim. The Zohar talks about Gilgulim, different things. When you come into this life and you want to do this, you're from another life, you had to do that, or Tzadik Gomer, Tzadik Eno Gomer. So you could have your kid, and the kid looks like it's a beautiful building because he's fitting into the picture, and it's a beautiful building. But the Yesod, which is the meaning of Kedushas HaBris, that's where this is all going to be leading to. The Yesod is, of course, Bris. That's the Yesod HaTzadik. But the Yesod is crooked. The Shor Chaim, which is the meaning of Kedushas HaBris, the energy of life, which is Kedushas HaBris, Ben Ish Chai, Rav Parlam Chai, Chiyus Chayim, is Yosef HaTzadik. Oid Yosef Chai, Tzadik Yesod Olam is Chai. Tzadik Yesod Olam. The midah of, as Shiur explains, the midah of Tzadik is Yesod Chai. It's that feeling of this is my life, this is my energy, this is the shorish of my life, this is what gives life to me, and this is the shorish of life to my children. That's the Indian of the bris. And therefore it's the only part of the body where you have just an Indian, whereas the Eva Chai, or it's an Eva Mace without translating that. It's Chiyim, it's Chiyus, or it's Chayim or Mavis, like in the parasha now, we're coming in the Nitzavim, we're in Nitzavim. V'charta b'chayim. It doesn't say v'charta b'tov. It says v'charta b'chayim. It's a remarkable thing. Because it's not just about tov. Because you could say to your kid day and night, this is tov. And the kid says, okay, I know I have to do this, but I don't feel the chiyus in this. So how do you connect those two? That you should feel alive in doing what's good. But what the Zohar Kodesh is saying is that to be very careful, because the rest of the world is admiring this building. But the emes is that in Yesod, in that place of bris, of that neshama's connection to God, connection to Kodesh Baruch Hu, which is bris, and that shorish hachaim, which is kedushas of bris, it's all crooked. And therefore, the only thing you could do, what the Zohar Kodesh says, is the only thing you could do is you have to knock down the building. You have to knock it down. And you have to try to fix it from the shorish, from the midah of Yesod. Tikkun HaBris. You have to build it from the shorish hachai. To build another person is from the shorish hachaim shelo, from the Yesod, which is that nekuda of Tzadik, of Yosef HaTzadik in that person. To build that person up from the shorish hachaim shelo, or else that kid could imitate his brothers and sisters and can imitate the rest of the guys, and it's giving you a certain feeling of, I was successful. But it comes out in different ways. If the Yesod is not good, if the Yesod is crooked, at some point along the way, look what happened. Everybody here is old enough to remember what happened. It happened like tomorrow. It's the yard site of the Chaburah that were killed in the World Trade, isn't it now? Huh? Not the English, the Jewish. I'm saying it was slichus. You remember? It was the second day of slichus. It was Chavis Chaim's yard site. I think it came out. It was the second day of slichus. I don't remember. It was slichus because I remember that they were in shul later because of slichus. and because of that, they didn't end up getting to work, and that they were saved. I had a good friend of mine that was killed at that time. So what happened over there? These buildings gave nachas ruach to everybody in New York, and made the whole world jealous that we have the Twin Towers over here in New York, and every time you drove on the road, so you remember them. You're driving, you'd see this gewalt, what these unbelievable, powerful buildings that represent, modern technology and the American ingenuity and all that stuff. And then the guys in their shmatis and their robes and their kafiyas went with a plane, gave a knack, and the whole thing is gone. Finished. A knack. The airplane went. So you wonder, how could it be the airplane only went up to, it was in 101 over there, higher up. It was different by each building, but it went into the building, right? And then you have these pictures of the people were watching, everybody was running, and then at some point, the whole thing went down. What happened? You would think there would have just have been that place in the building that was ruined. It should have just been the 101st, those 3-4 floors. No, but that was bad also. It should have just been those floors that were hurt. But the terrorists, and afterwards, all the Mevinim and all the Mumchim said, the building was not, to begin with, was not good. The Yisoid, Or Ad HaYisoid Ba. Our enemies say that. To destroy Yerushalayim, Ad HaYisoid Ba. They're smart. And they've been trying to do that for thousands of years. So they kill Jews, they knock down the Beis HaMikdash, they build it, but they can't get to the Yisod of who we are. Because the Yisod of the Jewish people is indestructible. But they want to, because they're smart. They say, Ada Yisod Ba. Now, and then there was, a few years ago, there was Sandy. Everybody remembers Sandy. So it was a chorban. So ever since Sandy, there are new regulations. And now when you build a house, right, and you have to build it up a certain way. If you live near the water, I don't know what the rules are, but you have to build it up a certain way. Because why? Because you see that there was able to be a kilkul by the Shirish, by the Yisod, that didn't hold up, and then the whole house was a fountain. Because if the Yisod is not strong, if the Yisod is not alive, if the Yisod of Chaim is not alive, then the building doesn't make it. It comes a storm, then it comes a strong wind, and it falls down. Same thing with our children. That's why everybody's so afraid. It shouldn't be. Right? How could it, you don't want your kid to see somebody that's not religious? What happens? You have a cousin, and the cousin has kids that are not religious. Or you have Bali Tshuva, the cousin's not Jewish. So if my kid sees somebody that's not Jewish, they might want to become like them. And it could be you're right, but that's very sad, because it means that the shirish, the yesod, is not strong. If the yesod is strong, then the building is a strong building. But if not, I'm going to send my kid to the army. He never saw a girl his whole life. He's going to see a girl in the army. He's finished. You understand that? Because it could be he's right. Because this bacher never saw. He might have seen a girl or something. He never saw a girl like that. And then here he is all of a sudden. 18 years of chinuch, like the World Trade Center. Boom, one missile. A pretty little girl gave him a wink. Boom. The whole World Trade Center. How did that happen? One airplane got. So you'd think you'd have one bad day with some, demonius. You'd have a bad day, like in the window on the 101st floor. You'd have a bad day. Didn't happen. This one missile, this girl, gave him a little bit of a smile, and the missile went into the 101st floor, but then the whole thing collapsed. Finished. He's done. And there's reason to be afraid. Because if the yesod is not strong, then the building can't make it. And you don't have to have a Hurricane Sandy. It can be a much softer, gentler wind that comes his way. And he's grounded. Ground zero. Finished. And parents don't understand. How did this happen to you? All the years of chinuch, and you know how many zmiris we sang at the table? And I said every week, I got a Dvar Torah online, the Dvar Torah of the week, and I said such good Dvar Torahs, and I put so many psukim together, And after all of that, you meet a girl, and and finished. It's all for fun. How did that happen? Because if Yisod is not there, the Kodesh HaChaim is not there. And the Kodesh HaChaim is not there, there's only so long I can make believe that I'm a skyscraper if I'm Gornish mit Gornish. I'm nothing. That's what he feels. I'm worthless. I can make believe I'm a skyscraper to make my parents happy, but I know that I'm Gornish mit Gornish. And inside of me there are other things that are not what they think I am. Just let's finish the last sentence. He says, L'chak ksiv, ish asher kiberchasa. Ish asher kiberchasa. Ki ba kinyin sheyesh la'adam, yochel mevarach la'hoisif ad b'li dai. Because if you're teaching your kid, and you're talking to your kid in his Nekudas HaChaim, that you could build, you could add stories. Look what he says. Ki ba kinyin sheyesh la'adam. When it's the kinyin of that person, when he feels this is me, and you work with that kid or that person in that place who he is, yochel mevarach la'hoisif ad b'li dai. You can add stories ad b'li dai. Then you can make it much higher than the World Trade Center. If it's him, you can keep on building. But if it's not him, then the wind comes and it's done. It's finished. Ad b'li dai. I'll just read you a sentence that when I first learned this around 40 years ago, I wrote this down from the Sefer Zmanim, from the Beis Yaakov. I know I kept you late, I'm sorry. In the Sefer Zmanim, in the Haggadah Shel Pesach, it says, he wrote, the Beis Yaakov wrote, the author of this Sefer, the Beis Yaakov wrote, Ach ikke shorish avodahu, the ikke shorish of serving Hashem, is sheyimtza ha'adam es atzmo gamkein. Listen to the words, sheyimtza ha'adam es atzmo gamkein. The ikke of Hashem is if you find yourself, not just God. Bakshu panai, es panech Hashem avakesh, you find yourself gamkein. V'yeda eiza mas, listen to these words, V'yeda eiza mas umatan oisek Hashem esbarach imo befrat nafsho. And you understand what's the mas umatan, what business does Hashem esbarach have with your soul? Befrat nafsho, you. What's the inyan that Hashem has with you? Eiza mas umatan, such a lashon. Mas umatan. She'ikra avoida bezeh shemakiris atzmo. Because the ikra avoida is bezeh shemakiris atzmo, and on that atzmo, you build buildings. You build buildings. So we're going to be learning also from the Sefer Da es Chelkecha, from the author of Vilvavi. We'll be doing some of that too. Who also wrote Da es Atzmcha that we learned many years ago. Who also wrote Da es Menuchascha. And it's all different ways of saying the same thing. What we're learning now. Da es Atzmcha. Da es Menuchascha. Da es Chelkecha. It's all the same thing. It's all yourself. Just he has three beautiful svarim to work through the sugis. And we'll be spending some time on Das Chelkecha, even though it's in all of this. All right, to be continued. Erev Yom Tov.